So we had discussed the thought that there are three acts to the game. The first act, with the curtains being closed, you haven't seen anything, you haven't been anywhere, and there's nothing but excitement for what's behind the curtain. The second act, where you've seen most of everything, but yet there's still more to be revealed, and there's this feeling of excitement, wanting to continue, enjoying what you've seen so far. And then the third act, where you have seen it all. And this is the point where we are now at, where we have visited every place that we could have. It doesn't mean the content is finished, it's just that there's nothing left to be revealed. I can't see behind that. Did the shade stop already? What is he doing? I wanted him to find some place to just adventure to. Instead, he wanted to play hide and seek. That painting we got of the king, when we picked it up, the shade said the king himself must have made it. I guess a sort of portrait. The shade draws little pictures. Maybe for the king that would be a little picture, but with that much detail? I think the shade is just being hopeful because it's in a fancy frame and perhaps he has some feelings of care for the king. Perhaps he just wants something to feel like a special gift just for him from the king. Honestly, with the books there, I don't think the king did that at all. And being in a secret place, I think someone wanted to hide it from the king. But why? Why hide that from the king? A picture of the king himself? I don't know. Just a thought. I think this becomes an interesting part of gameplay, where perhaps the game doesn't have any more content, but that doesn't mean you, the player, should feel bored or feel like there's nothing to do. Because it's kind of like that with outside of video games, you know. Why not go out? Well, I've seen everything. I've been everywhere. Doesn't mean you can't enjoy those places again. Just enjoy hanging out there. That's why some people, they just go for walks through the same places that they always walk. It's more of a time to just have your own thoughts. And I think it's strange, with such amusing, wonderful places that we can have in video games, that we don't do that. I have a friend. She'll do that. She enjoys VR. Not for the gameplay, not for the little movies and such that you can find. She plays a couple of very specific games because of the environment. She loads up a save game near the end of the game, so there are no more obstacles to deal with. She could just walk around freely and just enjoy the scenery. And that's it. That's all she likes to do. And there's nothing wrong with it. Just the feeling of actually being there, being somewhere else. The lonely shade is wandering through the empty caves once more. Yeah, for Shade, he doesn't enjoy the stroll. He wants there to be something. And now that we've seen it all, he feels like it's just empty. In some ways, I feel like he made his world smaller by adventuring and collecting little pieces and fragments from all the far ends, putting it in our home. It's made his world very small. There isn't really any reason to go far when you already have a little bit of everything, in his home. We'll visit the library. We've only seen it once. I find certain games, when they have daily tasks for you to play, I get it. They just want people to populate the game for other players as well. But what if the other players aren't enjoying the game? They're just there for the daily reward as well. Kind of like a chore. Hey, if you do this daily chore, you'll get a reward for it. And somehow that reward, it drives them to do that thing. With just wandering around and enjoying the places for what they are, that's not rewarded. And so, because there's no reward in doing that, I think there's less of incentive for people to want to do it. Or if they even desire to do it, let me just go do the daily thing first. But then if you get caught up with all the daily things, you never find that time for yourself anymore to find the things that you really enjoy to do. Who would have thought I would have become such a competent moss picker? Ah. More like a competent moss weaver. Picking up the moss so we can build more at home. Like the idea of just layers of moss for us to walk on. I've been digging around on the internet, reading about other caves. The caves that inspired this game and some other really big ones. One that's like a city underground, one that's just miles of long unexplored cave. I'm surprised the shade. Why am I collecting all this? Well, it feels good. I'm surprised the shade doesn't enjoy water. Jumping around in water and splashing it, making a mess with it, having fun with it. I guess for him, doing things physically, perhaps it doesn't bring him any enjoyment. Perhaps it doesn't feel good. I don't think it feels bad. It's just different. Speaking of different, do you see that? We bookmarked this place before. It's very small in the bookmark, but this is the exact spot. We bookmarked it because the ceiling, it looked like it was buckling. And apparently, given enough time, it broke. A book, cover is torn, but the pages are alright. I better take you to a safe place. Welcome, friend. We'll pick you up as well. We just found 5 more books for our collection. Kind of defeats my point of saying the journey is its own reward, and here we are, finding more tangible rewards, more books. find it interesting, the idea that in the beginning of the game, we want to make things faster because it feels like 400 is such a big, long number. It's so far away. And yet, once you see the light at the end of the tunnel, if we calculate staying at home, if time is moving at 22 and a half seconds, sometimes 22, sometimes 23, that if we just sit at home and continue to read, our longing will be finished in less than a week. Especially reading books like the Never-Ending Notebook that we finished, which on its own advanced time another 11 days. The Shade is an interesting little creature. He just likes to hang out. He likes to read. They're very much not like an animal. I can picture some animal wanting to scrounge around through all the shelves, climb up inside of them, see if he fits, see what's comfortable. Here, wouldn't you just want to just run and jump off? Nope. He just casually dips in. He's a very intellectual little creature. All right, Shade, your turn. can imagine some people being freaked out walking across such narrow, winding passageways without any handheld holds or railings, and steep drops to either side. And for the shade, no, it's fine, it's normal. But the shade does take very slow, cautious steps as he walks normally. Can I observe that? Well, now we've interrupted his walk. And when we ask him, continue your walk, he wants to walk somewhere else now. Yeah, we've been to this place already, but we only saw it when we were walking down. Now we're seeing it while we're walking up. It's a big difference. I'm just defending the thought of walking for the sake of just wandering around. I mean, we've only walked up these roads 3-4 times. Is that all it takes before we're bored of it? I used to wonder, some of these places we see in the background, there are a couple of them where we can walk. I used to wonder if there were ways to reach the others. I mean, they are passages for somebody at some point in time. But we're just their shade. We just cut the moss. Like there, in the background. You can walk there. I just find walking around helps me to move my thoughts. Not necessarily like pacing around in a circle kind of thing, but more of actually walking somewhere. He didn't comment that he's arrived. He didn't move. There he goes. I'm curious to see what are the new books we got. Most of the reading days, we spend reading Zarathustra, but we've picked up some other books with poems and stuff like that. I want to see if there's something fun. I guess with my wonderings going on this walk, my biggest wonder is if we spend every other day reading, we'll never be able to finish Zarathustra. If we took, say, 4 days to read one book, we would need 8 days. If we stayed at home and just read, well, we'd be done in about 8 days currently. So we could do that. Maybe, maybe we'll go out, wander around, see what we can see, and just come back and read. So we'll do a little bit of wandering each day. Go on a small hike with shade kind of thing. We could walk through eternity. We could draw more pictures. But that would just make time faster. Well, so does reading. It's a strange feeling of You don't want it to end, but at the same time, you want to know what's there at the ending. I guess for the shade, since this is all he knows, that there isn't really any value in it. You know, you couldn't say this place is amazing, it's great, if only you knew what other places look like. Well, he doesn't know. And what he has is, might be a fabulous place, but he has nothing to compare that to. And this fabulous place is empty. But here he remains, ever watchful, watching over the king. Maybe that's what it is. Instead of living far away, we live close to the king, so that way we can always watch over him. Look at that bookshelf. It's quite full. The wind in the willows, King's Pest. King Pest. A tale containing an allegory. The gods do bear and will allow in kings the things which they abhor in rascal routs. Buckhurst's Tragedy of Ferrex and Porrex. About 12 o'clock one night, in the month of October, and during the chivalrous reign of the 3rd Edward, 2 seamen belonging to the crew of the Free and Easy, a trading schooner, plying between Suluia and the Thames, and then at anchor in that river, were much astonished to find themselves seated in the tap room of an alehouse in the parish of St. Andrews, London, which alehouse bare for sign the portraiture of a jolly tar. Why did that sound so thick? The room, although ill-contrived, smoke-blackened, low-pitched, and in every other respect agreeing with the general character of such places at the period, was, nevertheless, in the opinion of the grotesque groups scattered here and there within it, sufficiently well adapted to its purpose. Of these groups are 2 seamen formed, I think, the most interesting, if not the most conspicuous. The one who appeared to be the elder, and whom his companion addressed by the characteristic appellation of Legs, was at the same time much the taller of the 2. He might have measured 6 feet and a half, and a habitual stoop in the shoulders seemed to have been the necessary consequence of an altitude so enormous. Superfluidities in height were, however, more than accounted for by deficiencies in other respects. He was exceedingly thin, and might, as his associates asserted, have answered, when drunk, for a pennant at the masthead, or when sober, have served for a jib-boom. But these jests, and others of a similar nature, had evidently produced, at no time, any effect upon the... I can picture how the word would sound. I don't know how to say it. Chinitory muscles of the tar, with high cheekbones and large hawk nose, retreating chin, fallen under jaw, and a huge protruding white eyes. The expression of his countenance, although tinged with a species of dogged indifference to matters and things in general, was not the less utterly solemn and serious beyond all attempts at imitation or description. And I'm going to switch to another book. Dream Days. The Golden Age. The House on the Borderlands. To my father, whose feet tread the lost aeons. The door in the wall. Oh, this one actually applies to the game. I think this one is a clue to hidden places. One confidential evening, not 3 months ago, Lionel Wallace told me of this story of the door in the wall. And at the time, I thought that so far as he was concerned, it was a true story. He told it to me with such direct simplicity of conviction that I cannot do otherwise than before in him. But in the morning, in my own flat, I woke to a different atmosphere. And as I lay in bed, I recalled the things he had told me, stripped of the glamour of his earnest, slow voice, denuded of the focused, shaded table light, the shadowy atmosphere that wrapped about him and me, and the pleasant, bright things, the dessert and glasses and napery of the dinner we had shared, making them, for the time, a bright little world quite cut off from everyday realities. I saw it in all as frankly incredible. He was mystifying, I said, and then, how well he did it. Isn't it quite a thing? I should have expected of him, of all people, to do well. Afterwards, as I sat up in the bed and sipped my morning tea, I found myself trying to account for the flavor of reality that perplexed me in his impossible reminiscences. And by supposing they did in some way suggest, present, convey, I hardly know which word to use. Experiences, it was otherwise impossible to tell. Well, I don't want to resort to that explanation now. Then what are you explaining? Sorry. We came here to have some fun reading some books, and I've gone through 3 pages of one-person news not saying about the interesting things about the doors in the wall, then not telling us about it, and then wondering about something but not telling us what he's wondering about. And he did what? Tell me the thing. And then just moving on, and I'm not ready to read this book. Or perhaps just not in the mood. That's fine. Let's find the short ones. Fables. It's a big book, but lots of small things. All right, the wolf and the crane. The wolf once got a bone stuck in its throat, so he went to a crane and begged her to put her long bill down his throat, pull it out. I'll make it worth your while, he added. The crane did as she was asked, and got the bone out quite easily. The wolf thanked her warmly, and was just turning away when she cried, "What about that fee of mine?" "Well, what about it?" snapped the wolf, baring his teeth as he spoke. "You can go about boasting that you once put your head into a wolf's mouth and didn't get it bitten off. What more do you want?" You should just feed that bone back to him. No, we didn't read these. We read Fables 1, right? There's a lot of them, though. Yeah, we finished Fables 1. Okay. Wolf and the Sheep. A wolf who was worried and badly bitten by dogs and lay a long time for dead. By and by he began to revive and, feeling very hungry, called out to a passing sheep and said, "Would you kindly bring me some water from the stream close by? I can manage about meat, If only I could get something to drink. But this sheep was no fool. I can quite understand, said he, that if I brought you water, you would have no difficulty about the meat. Good morning. What? So, I think he wanted to eat the sheep, but he needed some water to eat the meat. So if he had the water, he would just be like, ah, sheep, nom nom. The tunny fish and a dolphin. The tunny fish was chased by a dolphin and splashed through the water at a great rate, but the dolphin gradually gained upon him, was just about to seize him when the force of his flight carried the tunny on to a sandbank. In the heat of the chase, the dolphin followed him, and there they both lay out of the water, gasping for dear life. When the tunny saw that his enemy was doomed like himself, he said, I don't mind having to die now, for I see that he who was the cause of my death is about to share the same fate. Defeat me, you think? We shall both be doomed. The mouse and the bull. The bull gave chase to a mouse, which had bitten him in the nose. But the mouse was too quick for him and slipped into a hole in the wall. The bull charged furiously into the wall again and again, till he was tired out, sank down on the ground, exhausted with his efforts. When all was quiet, the mouse started out, bit him again. Beside himself with rage, he started to his feet, but by that time, the mouse was back in his hole again, and he could do nothing but to bellow and fume in helpless anger. Presently, he heard a shrill little voice say from inside the wall, You big fellows don't always have it your own way, you see. Sometimes we little ones come off best. The battle is not always to the strong. Lion and the Bull. The lion saw a fine fat bull pasturing among the herd of cattle and cast about for some means of getting him into his clutches. So he sent him word that he was sacrificing a sheep and asked if he would do him the honor of dining with him. The bull accepted the invitation, but on arriving at the lion's den, he saw a great array of saucepans and spits, but no sign of a sheep. So he turned on his heel quietly away. The lion called after him in an injured tone to ask the reason, and the bull turned around and said, I have reason enough. When I saw all your preparations, it struck me at once that the victim was to be a bull, not a sheep. The net is spread in vain in sight of the bird. What does this have to do with the bird? It's like they just want to share some little parable of knowledge. But why do they write it in such a weird way? Why not, if you're going to mention a bird, why not make the story about a bird? It would make much more sense then. The wolf, the fox, and the ape. A wolf charged a fox with theft, which he denied, and the case was brought before an ape to be tried. I don't get it. Why animals don't, but why would it? Reading on. When he had heard the evidence on both sides, it was ridiculous. The ape gave judgment as follows. I do not think, he said, that you, O wolf, ever lost what you claim. But all the same, I believe that you, fox, are guilty of the theft, in spite of all your denials. But the dishonest get no credit, even if they act honestly. Okay, you're just making up a story with... Why are we telling a story with animals when all you want to do is share a parable? Was writing such a brand new invention that people didn't know how to tell a good story? Maybe that's it. Or they just had these weird little techniques of, oh, use animals. People will read that. But it's like barely a page long. What a weird story. These are fun. They're weird, but they're fun. The escaped jackdaw a man caught a jackdaw and tied a piece of string to one of its legs, and then gave it to his children for a pet. The jackdaw didn't at all like having to live with people, so after a while, when he seemed to have become fairly tame and they didn't watch him so closely, he slipped away and flew back to his old haunts. Unfortunately, the string was still on his leg, and before long he got entangled in the branches of a tree, and the jackdaw couldn't get free. Try as he would, he saw it was all up with him, and cried in despair, "Alas, in gaining my freedom I have lost my life." Venus and the Cat. The cat fell in love with a handsome young man and begged the goddess Venus to change her into a woman. Venus was very gracious about it and changed her at once into a beautiful maiden, whom the young man fell in love with at first sight, shortly afterwards married. One day, Venus thought she would like to see whether the cat had changed her habits as well as her form. So she let a mouse run loose in the room where they were, forgetting everything. The young woman had no sooner seen the mouse than up she jumped and was after it like a shot, which the goddess was so disgusted that she changed her back again into a cat. But this goddess is so fickle that I'm going to test to see if you're anything like a cat. Oh, you are. Then back to a cat you become. Why? That's so cruel. It's doubly cruel because, like, it was a setup to see if it worked, and it's like, oh, it did work. Okay, now you're going to be punished for that. I didn't like to play this game. The stag with one eye. A stag, blind of one eye, was grazing close to the seashore and kept his sound eye turned towards the land, so was able to perceive the approach of the hounds, while the blind eye he turned towards the sea, never suspecting that any danger would threaten him from that quarter. As it fell out, however, some sailors, coasting along the shore, spied him and shot an arrow at him, by which he was mortally wounded. As he lay dying, he said to himself, "Wretch that I am, I bethought me of the dangers of the land, whence none assailed me, but I fear no peril from the sea, yet thence has come my ruin. Misfortune often assails us from an unexpected quarter. Yes, yes, whoever with your parables." The Wolf and the Shepherd. The wolf hung about near a flock of sheep for a long time, but made no attempt to molest them. The shepherd at first kept a sharp eye on him, for he naturally thought he meant mischief. But as time went by, and the wolf showed no inclination to meddle with the flock, he began to look upon him with more as a protector than as an enemy. And when one day some errand took him to the city, he felt no uneasiness at leaving the wolf with the sheep. But as soon as his back was turned, the wolf attacked them and killed the greater number. When the shepherd returned and saw the havoc he had wrought, he cried, "Serves me right for trusting my flock to a wolf." That one kind of pairs up well with the bull one. I think that one makes more of a statement than the parable does. Like, if you hit somebody over the head hard enough with some bit of knowledge, I think you damage them. You know, it's not well received if you're going to use a big old hammer for it. If you're telling two stories in succession and they relate to each other, it's like, oh, okay, I see the lesson there. Like, you have to gain it for yourself in some way. And by doing it, though, it's like, it's meaningful because it feels like you figured it out, you discovered it. The Grasshopper and the Owl. An owl who lived in a hollow tree was in the habit of feeding by night and sleeping by day, but her slumbers were greatly disturbed by the chirping of a grasshopper, who had taken up his abode in the branches. She begged him, repeatedly, to have some consideration for her comfort, but the grasshopper, if anything, only chirped the louder. At last, the owl could stand it no longer, but determined to rid herself of the pest by means of a trick. Addressing herself to the grasshopper, she said in her pleasantest manner, "As I cannot sleep for your song, which, believe me, is as sweet as the notes of Apollo's lyre, have a mind to taste some nectar, which Minerva gave me the other day. Won't you come in and join me?" The grasshopper was flattered by the praise of his song, and his mouth too watered at the mention of the delicious drink. So he said he would be delighted. No sooner had he got inside of the hollow where the owl was sitting than she pounced upon him and ate him up. So the next time I have a loud grasshopper, you're saying I should just leave out some water in a trap to get rid of it. But what if I like it? You trap it anyway, right? The two frogs. Two frogs were neighbors. One lived in a marsh where there was plenty of water, which frogs love. The other in a lane some distance away, where all the water to be had was that which lay in the ruts after rain. The marsh frog warned his friend and pressed him to come to live with him in the marsh, for he would find his quarters there far more comfortable and, what was still more important, more safe. But the other refused, saying he could not bring himself to move from a place to which he had become accustomed. A few days afterwards, a heavy wagon came down the lane, and he was crushed to death under the wheels. I mean, okay, yeah. It's true, though. You can become accustomed to something, so much so, that even if it's bad for you, that it becomes comfortable. Why is it like that? That seems weird. It seems like going with the idea, the universe is a simulation, is it? Because that sounds like bad programming to me. The belly and the members. The members of the body once rebelled against the belly. What? This sounds like a really weird but yet cool children's book. I want pictures for this. You, they said to the belly, live in luxury and sloth, and never do a stroke of work, while we not only have to do all the hard work there is to be done, but are actually your slaves, and have to minister to all your wants. Now, we will do so no longer, and you can shift for yourself for the future. They were as good as their word, and left the belly to starve. The result was just what might have been expected. The whole body soon began to fail, and the members and all shared in the general collapse. And then they saw too late how foolish they had been. It sounds like it's meant to be a parable for something else. Probably like some sort of workplace exercise. This is what the manager has brought you. Read this story. The monkey and the camel. At a gathering of all the beasts, the monkey gave an exhibition of dancing and entertained the company vastly. There was a great applause at the finish, which excited the envy of the camel. It made him desire to win the favor of the assembly by the same means. So he got up from his place, began dancing. But he cut such a ridiculous figure as he plunged about, and made such a grotesque exhibition of his ungainly person, that all the beasts all fell upon him with ridicule and drove him away. Two travelers were walking along a bare and dusty road in the heat of summer's day, coming presently to a plane tree, and they joyfully turned aside to shelter from the burning rays of the sun in the deep shade of its spreading branches. As they rested, looking up into the tree, one of them remarked to his companion, "What a useless tree the plane is. It bears no fruit and is of no service to man at all." The plane tree interrupted him with indignation. "You ungrateful creature," he cried. "You come take shelter under me from the scorching sun, and then, in the very act of enjoying the cool shade of my foliage, you abuse me and call me good for nothing. Many a service is met with ingratitude. A flea once said to an ox, "How comes it that a big strong fellow like you is content to serve mankind and do all their hard work for them, while I, who am no bigger than you see, live on their bodies and drink my fill of their blood, and never do a stroke for it?" To which the ox replied, "Men are very kind to me, and so I am grateful to them. They feed and house me well, and every now and then they show their fondness for me by patting me on the head and neck. They'd pat me too," said the flea, "if I let them, but I take good care they don't, or there will be nothing left of me." Is that how fleas imagine it? They're just being patted to death? I knew a girl who would keep a cup of water near her, and when fleas bothered her, she would pick them up and just dunk them in the water for a few seconds and let them go. So you ended up with a glass of water with all these little specks in it. I can imagine that going badly as well. Somebody just coming over and being like, water, can I have some? No, don't. Well, you could. I mean, I'm not going to stop you from drinking it. The stag and the vine. The stag, pursued by the huntsman, concealed himself under the cover of a thick vine. They lost track of him and passed by his hiding place without being aware that he was anywhere near. Supposing all danger to be over, he presently began to browse on the leaves of the vine. The movement drew the attention of the returning huntsman, and one of them, supposing some animal to be hidden there, shot an arrow at a venture into the foliage. The unlucky stag was pierced to the heart, and, as he expired, he said, "I deserve my fate for my treachery in feeding upon the leaves of my protector." And gratitude sometimes brings its own punishment. See, it didn't need that. It was fine as a story of its own if it followed the previous story. Not the one with the flea, but the one before that. About the plane tree, It does feel like these were just early stories, early tales to tell people, but I don't think they figured out quite yet a better way of telling tales. I think it's the same way with games. And the longing, I think, does really well for being something that's trying something very different. I couldn't criticize it negatively. I think it does well. That feeling of you want time to move faster, you just want to advance things, you have so much content, and then you begin to find, oh, well, the time is almost all gone away, but I still want to stay here. I want to see more. And you can. You can just choose not to end the game. But at the same time, I feel like that process it fits the content very well, because as we are now, we're reaching that point where there isn't much content left, perhaps to just read a few books, and then there isn't any more. It fills up the size of its box perfectly well. However, it doesn't stop me or several others from wanting to play it again. Let's see. I think we'll leave the shade something to read. Let's do Monte Cristo. That's a big one. But yeah, ever onward. We want to reach our birthday. So that way we can see more content, discuss more lore. After all, this is a lore playthrough of the game. It's not meant to be a reading session. Well, I don't know. I enjoy the reading, so we're going to end up with both of them done, I think. We'll get through the content, and we'll get through the reading. Because I feel like the reading, it does add more depth to the game, to the story, because I feel like it is somewhat of an inspiration. It helps add some character to this world.